I will do chemical free farming. I will not add any chemicals to my soil. I follow zero chemical, zero tilling practices. Effect of corona in 2018-19 had made me to close the so-called dairy farm, my animals, and I moved back to Bangalore. Microbes plays a major role in helping the plants to grow. Any plant will have two types of growth phases, that we call it as vegetative growth phase and reproductive growth phase. I have not used even 1 liter of cow urine from day 1 of my planting. And if you look at any soil, there is an availability of potash and phosphorus, P and K, but they are not in an available format. In the initial phase, that is vegetative growth phase, the plants needs more nitrogen. In a sense, see in my hands I have all N, P, K. Hi friends, myself HR Manjunath, born in a village called Gadenalli, Hasana Taluku, Hasan district, Karnataka. I graduated myself Bachelor of Engineering from the Institute, RH Engineering Institute of Technology, Chikmagaluru, which is in Karnataka, in the discipline Electronics and Communication Engineering in the year 1993. After my technical graduation, I moved to Bangalore. I worked for a telecom company for first 6 to 8 years. Then in the year 1999, I started my own company, which is mainly into IT infrastructure called data storage systems. That business I have managed till 2015. It's kind of a corporate sales, and that business given me an opportunity to travel across this country and able to interact with varieties of customer profiles and understand their requirements and suggest an appropriate storage infrastructure. As the technology changed, our clients started using data center for the storage services. Hence, the independent storage system in their server farms were not being used. So, instead of going into another technology, myself and my partner, we have decided to close the IT business, and both of us have come from farming background. We thought, let us pursue agriculture. Friends, in the year 2015, I moved to my native Hasan, which is 180 km from Bangalore. Then another 20 km away from Hasan towards Sakleshpur, that is a road connecting to Mangaluru, I have purchased a land of about 6 plus acres with about 250 plus yielding coconut trees. So, my journey of farming started in the year 2015. Before that, I came from a farming family background. From my childhood days, I was part of the farming activity, which was coordinated initially by my father, later my elder brother. So, I had exposed to farming and had very much interest and developed a passion towards farming. Friends, when I started decided to do farming, I had certain resolutions. One, I will do chemical free farming. I will not add any chemicals to my soil. That is the first resolution I had. That is also called as organic agriculture. Then wherever possible, I will not disturb the topsoil. That we call it as zero tilling. Third, I would like to take my farm as self-sustainable farm, for which whatever is required for the my plants in the farm, mainly the manure, etc., should generate locally within my farm. So, these are all the framework on which I designed my farming approach. Initially, so under the assumption that cow dung and cow urine is required for organic agriculture, so I brought a couple of cows and started managing it. But later I realized it was too much of overhead and load on me to manage livestock. Also, the effect of corona in 2018-19 had made me to close the so-called dairy farm, my animals, and I moved back to Bangalore. I was in Bangalore and started pursuing some other opportunity related to farming and started learning myself. My learning on organic farming or the organic agriculture is mainly on 4 dimensions. I am a very good reader of books. So, I read a lot of books related to computer technology and management as part of my business. And now after coming to this agriculture, I started reading a lot of books, magazines and journals. There are 2 prestigious institutions related to agriculture in Bangalore. One is called University of Agricultural Sciences, which is also known as Gandhi Krushi Vignana Kendra, GKVK. I regularly visit this GKVK campus of University of Agriculture Sciences, Bengaluru, and I speak to various faculties there, and I try to learn from them the basics of farming with respect to chemical free farming. I had a very good relationship with the head of the Department of Microbiology at UIS Bengaluru, and they have given me to understand that microbes plays a major role in helping the plants to grow. So, I have got lot of information about microbial management, the terms called microbial density and microbial diversity. So, after getting all this information, learning from the universities, so I started bringing this microbial culture, I start inoculating my soil, the basin of the soil of my plants. That is why I started adding microbes to my plants. Then I also went to another institute in Bengaluru called Indian Institute of Horticulture Research, IIHR. There is a place called Hesargatta in Bengaluru. IIHR is one of the prestigious central government university where a lot of research will happen, and they also develop and provide seeds and seedlings to farmers. So, I regularly buy some seeds and seedlings from both IIHR, Hesargatta, Bengaluru, and also our University of Agriculture Sciences, GKVK, Bengaluru. That is why I bring my plants. So, year 2021, 22, I took up another opportunity of developing 8 acres of land in this place where I am standing now. This is located in a place called village Banavati, Sasalu Hobali, Dodballapura Taluk, Bangalore Rural District. This place is approximately about 72 kilometers from my house in Malleshwaram, Bengaluru, and I keep traveling and I keep staying here. I have a farmhouse here, so I stay here 3-4 days and I get my work done. So, both in my Hassan project and in this Dodballapura project, I follow zero chemical, zero tilling practices. Being a absentee landlord, for example, because I stay in Malleshwaram, Bengaluru, so I decided not to bring any livestock in both of my projects. So, today in a sense I am practicing what is called animal free farming. When I say I am doing organic agriculture and I am doing animal free farming, people will say, what is this, without having animal, without having livestock, without having farmyard manure or a dung manure, how do you manage your farm? Definitely now we will take a tour of our farm. You are going to see, here is a farm which I have set up across 6 acres now, which I have not used even 1 liter of cow urine from day 1 of my planting. And this is not my desire, this is my compulsion. I was looking for an alternative system of manuring my plants without cow dung and cow urine based inputs to farming. So, I was successful now. I had certain approaches which I will explain you now. When we start planning our activity on agriculture, we should look at, first thing is our terrain and the soil. So, the terrain, the slope, etc. plays a significant role in terms of creating bunds, rainwater harvesting structure and other water management. And also the type of the soil what we see, what we have in our land also tells us in terms of how do we prepare. For example, this MS farm spread across 8 acres do have, most of the places do have soil like this. As you see there, we have pebble stones kind of a thing all over, little larger stones also. It is a more of a less sandy, more reddish. Generally we call sand mixed to red soil, but here the sand component is less, maybe because of soil erosion over the years or the nature is like this. When the farmland is like this with lot of pebble stones and different types of stones, it indicates what? It indicates that there is a huge amount of mineral deposits in the soil. Eventually these pebble stones will become topsoil, as we know, they convert into soil. So, a good amount of mineral deposits are there in the soil. I do not worry about minerals. If you look at any soil, there is an availability of potash and phosphorus, P and K, but they are not in an available format. They will be in some complex compound which we need to convert into available format, that we will discuss when we discuss more about microbes. Now, I had this, and look at this my soil, then I know here abundant minerals are there, sufficient deposits of P and K, that is phosphorus and potash is also there. Then what is only thing which is not there is nitrogenous manure or N. So, I looked at options, how do I increase or availability of nitrogen into my commercial plants of interest, which I will going to plant here. Friends, as you know, our atmosphere has got 78% of nitrogen, and there is a nitrogen cycle. What is nitrogen cycle? The nitrogen in the atmosphere get fixed into the soil and being used by the plants, and finally it is released back into the atmosphere. This we call it as nitrogen cycle. How the atmospheric nitrogen get fixed into the soil such that the plants will make use of it. Friends, any plant will have two types of growth phases, that we call it as vegetative growth phase and reproductive growth phase. When the plant is in the initial stage, when it is seeded or being transplanted, it goes through a phase called vegetative growth phase. In this vegetative growth phase, the plant will establish its root zone, it creates its stem and creates its branches and be ready. Once the plant establishes all these things, that is, it completes its vegetative growth phase, then it moves into reproductive growth phase. At that place, at the time only, the plant will start doing flowering, nuts, fruits and seeds. This is the plant cycle. Now, in the initial phase, that is vegetative growth phase, the plants needs more nitrogen. How and when we can provide this nitrogen into our plants? As we know, any animal dung or a urine do have required percentage of uric acid or urea component. So, as a simple practice, farmers will be advised to maintain livestock, collect the animal urine and the dung and use this dung and urine combination to feed into the plants, and that provides nitrogen component to a growing plant in her vegetative growth phase. Now, is the dung and animal urine is the only option to add nitrogenous manure into growing plant? Not necessarily. Friends, nature has created a section of plants that we call it as nitrogen fixing plants or N fixing plants. These nitrogen fixing plants, what they do? They host, shelter a bacteria called Rhizobium, Azotobacter, etc. They are mainly meant for fixing the nitrogen from the atmosphere. There are small nodules on the roots of these nitrogen fixing plants. The family of Rhizobium bacteria, microbes, will find their shelter in those root nodules and absorb the nitrogen from the atmosphere, fix it to a dissolvable format or a readily absorbable format by the roots of the plants. Hence, these plants are called nitrogen fixing plants. So, in any farm, when we start doing, the first thing we need to do is start bringing N fixing plants as many as possible in terms of their diversity, as many as possible in terms of numbers into our plants, into our farm. Friends, for your information, this is about 6 acres of land which we have planted here in the year June 2022. We have planted more than 4,000 plus nitrogen fixing plants at various opportunities. As we travel in our farm tour now, you are going to discover them, find them, look at them and find their advantages, and specifically the role these nitrogen fixing plants are playing in a given position. Before we get into the actual positioning of these N fixing plants, let us also look at some of the options which in our MS farm we have used. Let me describe one among these plants. This area we will see, friends. This is the nitrogen fixing plant called Erythrina. In Kannada, we call it as Halavana. This Erythrina is the massive growing plant. We do stick based transmission. I brought this kind of sticks from my other farm on Hassan district and we planted here. When we planted this plant, for example, it was this kind of a thickness of a stick of about 4 feet length. It is here. So, when we plant this, within 3-4 months it will establish like this and start creating branches. This Erythrina is a exponentially growing plant. For example, if you see now, each of these vertical stems are of very good size and they keep growing. If you need a better shade management, matlab you need to grow plants which creates more shade into your farm in a lesser time, then we should plant as many plants of Erythrina. We can also chop them as a green or a dry biomass and mulch them into basin of our commercial plants. But I suggest not to chop them in the initial 1 or 2 years, because we wish them to grow to a very good height. You can see in the other side of my farm where about 30 months old Erythrina has grown into more than 15 feet. The next important nitrogen fixing plant which all the farmers should use, and I am using in the chemical free farming practices, is this. This is Gliricidia. This Gliricidia in our Kannada language we also call them as Gobbarada Gida, the manure plant. This Gliricidia is a blessing given to the organic farmers from the nature. This Gliricidia, friends, has got the tendency to grow as you chop. This Gliricidia we can plant with two options. We can get the seeds. I have a lot of flowers and seeds, you can see there, I will take you there, and we collect the seeds in our farm. So, we can take the seeds, do some nursery in a small packets and then transplant them. Or like Erythrina, we can take this kind of a stem of 4 feet of this much of height and then plant them directly, and these shoots will come out. The beauty of this Gliricidia is that if you chop it here, then you will get branches like this. Again you chop it here, you will get branches like this. It starts branching out. You can see, I will show you there in one of the section. I have this Gliricidia which is 28-30 months old, has got more than 30 branches, and these branches we can keep on chopping them. We keep chopping this Gliricidia, let us say every 35 to 40 days during monsoon and winter days, and every 60 to 75 days during summer, because we wanted to create some shade during summer. Friends, this Gliricidia has got all the plant nutritions. In chemical farming we have been told that there are primary nutrients called NPK. That NPK, that is nitrogen, phosphorus and potash, is also available in the Gliricidia. When we cut this green and mulch it into our plant's basin, so these green leaves provides what is called nitrogen. Obviously he himself is fixing nitrogen and accumulating, depositing in the soil, but these leaves when we go and mulch it provide nitrogen. The sleeves, the stem, this is the branch or a stem. So whatever this leaves, now I have removed this fellow, this provides phosphorus. The hard core inside this, when you chop this off, you can see the core. The core inside this contributes more amount of potassium. In a sense, see in my hands I have all N, P, K. Such a simple plant blessed with all kind of nutritions, grows faster, create more biomass for mulching, establishes root zone, host rhizobium, help nitrogen fixing, provide shades and take care of my plant. Such a wonderful plant given by this nature to farmers. I hereby recommend all my fellow farmers to plant as much as possible this Gliricidia plant in their farm. In my farm, as already said, more than 3000 plus plants we have planted, and we continue to plant wherever we found some sunlight is there and no commercial crops are there. Friends, the next nitrogen fixing plant which we will use in our farm is mulberry. Generally this plant is called mulberry plant, which is mainly used in production of silk industry. So for this silkworms, they feed these leaves. It is one of the most nutritional food for silkworms which produces silk. Here I am not doing any sericulture, but still I brought this mulberry plants. These mulberry plants like Gliricidia or Erythrina, they grow faster within no time. You can keep on chopping them at an average of 45 to 60 days. Grow faster, creates more number of biomass into my plants. But this is not a dichotom family like Erythrina or Gliricidia, means it does not host the rhizobium bacteria on the root nodules, but provides shade, green mulching, dry mulching and nutrition. So, and this grows very fast. You can set it up now with the sticks, within 35-40 days you can take the first harvest, and every 45 days you can do harvest. On an average in a year we can harvest 6 to 8 times and use this biomass for mulching. Mulching is very important, I will explain mulching benefits later. but this is used for mulching. So, the third plant I have used in this farm is mulberry. The next one, the fourth one what you can see here is called Agasse in Kannada, and it is called Sesbania grandiflora. This Sesbania is also fastest growing plant, you can see there, and this we grow only by seeding. Either we do direct seeding onto our farm, or we do a small nursery and grow them into a seedlings and transplant them. This Sesbania, we chop it to our height, for example about 4 to 5 feet, such that it starts branching out like this. Once it branches out, that it generates too much of green biomass both for shading as well as mulching. This Sesbania grandiflora is a very good fodder, green fodder for livestock. So, if you have a livestock and you want to feed the livestock, this is one of the best thing we can look at it. This Agasse plant also does rhizobium hosting. In its root, it hosts the rhizobium and does nitrogen fixing. Friends, these are all the nitrogen fixing plants. One more nitrogen fixing plant, one more shade management plant which I use is called Tropiaca or Tropiaca. This you would have seen, this is a tuber plant. If you plant this Tropiaca sticks like this on a raised bund surface like this establishes very quickly and it forms its tuber inside this. When you want to create quickly, less amount of time, more shade on your farm, to provide shade to your plants, your commercial plant, you can plant this Tropiaca. Tropiaca also provides that tuber. The tuber become food for my microbes and some other animals like rats, wild boars, etc. We have planted more than 800 plus Tropiaca, about an acre land. I will show you when we take the tour there. So, in summary, we have Erythrina, Gliricidia, Mulberry, Sesbania, Tropiaca, all these kind of plants we have used, we have planted in excess of 3000-4000 plants only for shade, mulching, to generate biomass for mulching, nitrogen fixing and other benefits. So, this is where we need to give focus to, and this brings required biodiversity into our farm when we are starting from zero. Friends, focus in establishing these dichotom nitrogen fixing shade provision plants in your farm, and this is the golden opportunity. When there was no shade from other plants, these plants grows well and deliver all those benefits which I outlined.